Hello and welcome to FIA Pure Motorsport. On this week's episode, we'll crown the next karting gearbox world champion. We'll also show you how important the seats are in karting, and we have some great autocross action from France, plus much, much more from the FIA world of motorsport. The 8th round of the FIA European Autocross Championship takes place in Saint-Igny-de-Vert in France. The Circuit de la Brosse is 882 meters long and very narrow. In most categories, the race for the European Championship title is still very close, so excitement is guaranteed at the third-to-last race weekend of the season. The first final on Sunday is the cross-car final. Valentin Comte in the black buggy gets off to the best start, but Ivan Chinchilla accelerates best out of the corner and takes the lead. Then the overall leader, David Miat, also passes Comte on the inside in his red and white buggy. Chinchilla is in second place in the overall standings and has to stay ahead of Miat to make up points on the Frenchman. And his plan works out. Chinchilla wins ahead of Miat and Comte. With this victory, the Spaniard reduces the gap to Miat in the overall standings to only 10 points. In the junior buggies, the favorites are on the front row of the grid. Malone Feuillade is second overall, and there is the overall leader, Arnost Florian, who has a comfortable 41-point lead over Feuillade. Otenk has a bad start. Feuillade takes advantage of that and moves ahead of the Dutchman. Florian is in third place. This doesn't change through the first laps, and the three leaders are close together and can pull away a little. Then it's Nathan Otenk who increases the pressure on Feuillade. He tries to force the Frenchman to make a mistake, which he succeeds in doing. Otenk wins ahead of Feuillade and Florian. Nevertheless, the Czech still has a 40-point lead over Feuillade in the overall standings. In the buggy 1600, Thomas Kristol is in third overall. Stine Jaspers is on the front row of the grid, and so is the overall leader, Jakub Novotny. Novotny in the middle with the best start. Kristol is on the inside, and Jaspers tries to pass on the outside. After a few laps, Novotny and Kristol manage to pull away. Damien Crepeau in the yellow buggy makes a great move through the middle and takes over third place, while Jaspers turns around and is out of the race. Thomas Kristol takes the lead ahead of Novotny and Crepeau. The field is now closer together, and the drivers have to navigate skillfully around Jaspers' parked buggy. While Kristol defends his first place well against Novotny, reigning European champion Kevin Peters and Steven Laubach put a lot of pressure on Crepeau in third place. After a mistake by the Frenchmen, Laubach and Peters pass. In the end, a great success for Thomas Kristol ahead of Jakub Novotny. Steven Laubach still manages to make it onto the podium, and since Marcus Wibberle is only 16th, Novotny has a 34-point lead over the German before the last two stops. The final of the Super Buggies with Robert Taüll, Bernd Stubbe, and Vincent Mercier in the first row. His big rival, European champion Peter Nicodem, only starting from the second row. Mercier takes a quick lead, and Nicodem immediately putting pressure on those in front of him. Nicodem quickly moves up to third place. To the delight of the French fans, Vincent Mercier leads the race. Nicodem has a great duel with Robert Taüll for second place. Then Nicodem passes Taüll. His next target, Vincent Mercier at the head of the field. In the next lap, he tries to attack. He passes on the inside, but Mercier makes a great move. He turns his buggy sideways before the curve to enable to accelerate again quickly. The plan works, and he regains the lead. In the last laps, things get really wild. Four drivers fight it out for the win: Mercier, Taüll, Nicodem, and Stubbe. Initially, Mercier is able to hold on to the lead. Stubbe has too much momentum, touches Théoul and falls back. The other three drivers don't give each other a centimeter of space as they are wheel to wheel together through the track. Théoul and Nicodème attack Mercier and pass him. A great race. Autocross sport at its best. Robert Théoul in the lead now has to fend off Nicodème's overtaking attempts, and Mercier tries to keep Bernd Stubbe behind him. But Mercier has a puncture and Stubbe passes the Frenchman on the straight. Robert Théoul defends his lead with everything he has and also saves himself for the finish. What a final! Robert Théoul wins his first race of the season. Nicodème comes second ahead of Bernd Stubbe. A disappointing fourth place for Vincent Mercier, who thus loses points in the overall standings to Peter Nicodème. In the world of autocross, it's not just about speed. It's about precision and control, and the cockpit is the nerve center of it all. On the narrow autocross tracks, the action is intense. The drivers have to concentrate on their buggy, the opponents, and the track. This is why the cockpits are kept minimalistic. The 2022 European champion in buggy 1600 category, Kevin Peters, designed and built his buggy completely on his own. The special feature? It's powered by 2 motorbike engines. In the cockpit, Peters has limited himself to the essentials. In the center, of course, it's the steering wheel. It's typically a compact, flat-bottom design that allows for quick and precise steering inputs. Behind it lays the display with the all-important information. Here's the display. It shows all the data: oil pressure, oil temperature, the engine RPM, and the RPM at the start. The gear indicator is separate, as it has to be located away from the wiring harness. This prevents it from interfering with the system so that the tracking control can be installed somewhere. Then you have the starter here, the shifting bone, then you have 2 starters here, one for the left engine and one for the right engine. That way you can start the engines one after the other, and normally that works without any problems. On the steering wheel you have the button for launch control. You can select RPMs with this knob. Below that is the button for the reverse gear. It's electric, a converted starter. And here we have the gear stick lever with the gear stick interrupter, so you can shift up the gears easily without using the clutch. However, when you shift down, you have to use the clutch. So next time you see an autocross buggy tearing up the track, remember, it's not just about the horsepower. It's also about the cockpit. The cockpit where precision and passion meet the challenge of autocross head-on. The Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine returns to Italy to compete on the iconic track of the Autodromo Nazionale Monza. Italian driver Andrea Kimi Antonelli leads the championship with a 33-point advantage over his closest rivals, Martinho Stenshorn, who holds second place ahead of Tim Tramnitz from Germany. In the first race, Rafael Camara and Marcus Amand are on the front row of the grid. On row 2, Michael Belov and Andrea Kimi Antonelli are waiting for their chance. In total for race 1, 34 vehicles are ready to challenge. At the start, Belov is slow to get away. Amand immediately sits next to Camara and Antonelli is right behind them. Amand takes the lead. Antonelli can't get past his teammate, and at the back of the field, several drivers are too fast to make the turn. Antonelli doesn't waste any time. The Italian takes his chance, and with a great move, he overtakes Camara at the Rogia chicane. Thus, the Brazilian loses 2 grid positions within a very short period of time. Then Antonelli uses the slipstream of Amand to get close to the Frenchman and then overtakes him with a slingshot. Then Camara is slowing down and finally has to give up. After a short safety car phase, the race is restarted. Antonelli leads ahead of Amand and Michael Belov. Then there's an incident between several drivers. That's the end of the race for Sami Magwentinov, Massimo Capietto, and Tim Tramnitz. At the next restart, Belov tries to catch Amand. Belov remains aggressive, a bit too aggressive. He touches Amand, and the race is over for him. A little bit later, Kaz Havercourt has to retire as well. Shortly before the end of the race, Enzo Schionti spins and loses important places, finishing 24th. Kimi Antonelli ahead of Marcus Amand and Alessandro Giusti. But 6 post-race time penalties led most notably to a different winner. Antonelli is penalized for activating push to pass on the opening lap when its use is not allowed until lap 2, while Amand was penalized for forcing Michael Belov onto the grass. So the win belongs to Giusti, as both drivers ahead were penalized 10 seconds. Frenchman Victor Bernier moves up to second place as Antonelli's biggest rival, Marcus Stenshorn, finishes in third. In the second race, Andrea Kimi Antonelli is on pole position. Next to him is Santiago Ramos, and behind him in third overall, Tim Tramnitz. After he and Antonelli failed to score points in the first race, they now have their sights set high. The field gets away to a good start. Ramos manages to get next to Antonelli, and the Italian has to brake very late to keep Ramos behind him. Out of the first chicane, Antonelli is able to pull away from the rest of the field. After a very good start, Camara is pushed away by Ramos, misses his braking point, and has to take evasive action. The Brazilian rejoins the race in fourth place behind Antonelli, Ramos, and Roman Belinsky. After Stenshorn has made up points on Antonelli in the first race, he now clashes with Dirksen. The race ends very early for both drivers. Again, Antonelli has the best start after the safety car phase. Then Ramos spins. The Mexican is very lucky that no driver crashed into him in the narrow chicane, but he drops from second to 22nd place. Roman Belinsky gets too far to the outside on the Parabolica. Rafael Camara does not miss this chance to overtake the pole. In lap 12, Pierre-Alexandre Prévost goes off the track and slides back again. Tom Le Bon avoids the worst with an evasive maneuver, but the Englishman crashes into the barrier. The race is over for both of those drivers, while at the front, Camara attacks Antonelli and overtakes him for the lead. He holds it until the race is stopped by red flags on lap 13, with just under 5 minutes plus 1 lap still left on the race clock. The cause of the stoppage is the incident on lap 12 between Provost and Le Bon. First, the safety car comes out, then red flags are waved, and race control chooses not to restart the race. This means the results are taken from the end of lap 11, placing Antonelli back into the lead and therefore resulting in his 4th win. With 2 stops to go, Antonelli leads in the overall standings by 43 points ahead of Martinius Stenshorn. Tim Tramnitz still holding on to 3rd place. The race weekend in Zolder did not start well for reigning champion Norbert Kish. With a commanding lead, the leader in the overall standings in the Goodyear FIA European Truck Racing Championship had problems with his turbocharger and had to retire. Jochen Hahn took advantage of this to make up points in the championship on Norbert Kish with a victory. It was to be Kish's only weak phase in Belgium. He won the next 3 races in Zolder without any technical problems. Thus, before the last 2 events of the season in France and Spain, the Hungarian has a commanding lead in the overall standings with 70 points ahead of 2nd place Jochen Hahn. The last event of the FIA European Drag Racing Championship took place at Santa Pod Raceway. In Top Fuel, the championship was already decided after Ida Zetterstrom claimed the win at the penultimate round in Hockenheim. However, at Santa Pod, she was once again unstoppable. In the final, Zetterstrom stormed to a great 3.91 seconds to claim her 3rd win of the season and clinch the title in what was only her 2nd year in the fastest category of the championship. In Pro Modified, 2022 champion Jan Eriksson retained his title after claiming the win at Hockenheim. The 2023 crown is the 3rd consecutive title for the driver from Sweden. At Santapod, Eriksson lost his semifinal run against Mats Eriksson, and that was the first time the Swede was defeated in an elimination round this season. In Top Methanol, the championship was decided in the semifinals. 2022 champion and number 1 qualifier Sandro Bellio had to face the championship leader Lynn Flosvig. At the start line, the race was decided as Bellio suffered from traction problems. Flosvig claimed the win with a 5.58 second run to secure her first championship win ever. In Pro Stock, the championship was also decided in the semifinals. Michael Malmgren had to face the championship leader Stefan Enrid. With a win margin of only 0.02 seconds, Malmgren defeated Enrid and took over the championship lead. In the final, the new champion was defeated by Ekengren, who took his first career win that elevated him to third in the championship, with Enrid ending up in second place in the standings. Karting is often considered the foundation of motorsport. It's a thrilling and dynamic activity that allows individuals to experience the exhilaration of racing on a smaller scale. While various components of a kart contribute to its performance, one often overlooked yet crucial element is the seat. The seat in karting serves more than just a place to sit, it plays a pivotal role in enhancing both safety and performance.
The seat is a very important part of the chassis and the kart in general. Obviously it affects the handling in many different ways. Obviously the position of the seat, the rigidity of the seat. So it is a massive part of the chassis, its handling and performance.
One of the most difficult jobs to do in the kart is to fit the seat in such a way that it's both comfortable for the driver and beneficial for the balance and handling of the chassis. The most important factor in correctly sizing a seat is that it must fit tightly to all parts of the body from the chest down to the hip area. Unlike race cars which have harnesses, a karting seat is a way of being held down in the seat. The most damage to the body will occur when the torso is able to move independently of the seat rather than with it. The seat significantly affects how the kart handles on the track. A properly positioned and fitted seat enables the driver to maintain optimal control over the kart's steering, throttle, and braking. It forms a crucial connection between the driver and the vehicle, allowing for precise inputs and adjustments that can make the difference between victory and defeat.
Obviously the first thing, the driver's got to be able to reach everything, so he's got to be able to reach the pedals, reach the steering wheel. But basically we'll put the seat in at a preferred position to us for each category, for each tyre, and then we try then to make the pedals and the steering fit that driver when he's sitting in that position.
As for the mounting height of the seat within the kart, there is currently on average about 5 millimeters protruding below the level of the main chassis tubes.
Mainly the bottom is the one that takes the biggest pounding, because obviously it goes over the curbstones, so often you'll see the bottoms being taken out of the bottom of the chassis when they're riding the curbs and things like that.
The angle of the seat will change how the kart will rotate and change directions in the corner. Seats that are set at 63 degrees from horizontal are best for general karting and junior drivers. For karts that will be racing at a higher grip situations like the KZ categories, seats will be set at 58 degrees, which lowers the center of gravity, keeping the kart stable. Important is also rigidity. Low-powered karts tend to favor a soft, flexible seat as this frees up the chassis. As the engine gets more powerful, the additional weight transfer of slightly stiffer seats may prove advantageous, because in karting, even the seemingly small things can make the biggest difference. The MondoKart.com FIA Karting World Championship took place in Pro Kart Raceland near Wackersdorf, Germany. In KZ and KZ2, drivers will push their tires, chassis, engines, and bodies to the absolute limit. Over 100 drivers from all 6 continents have traveled to compete in the KZ2 final. To keep the traveling fans happy, Niels Troger placed himself as a local favorite in pole position. But with Alex Powell and Keen Nakamura Berta right behind him on the grid, winning at home is going to be incredibly difficult. Troger couldn't have asked for a better launch as he surged in front of Powell off the line. Orlov had a terrible start and plunged back through the pack, while Nakamura Berta and Vasily challenged Powell from the 4th corner. the Romanian moving up to third. There was, of course, the inevitable first lap victim, and this time it was Christian Bertucca, the highest-ranked driver in the race, out in one lap. And then chaos. Further around the opening lap, Matteo Zanchi clattered into the back of Keen Nakamura Berta, and they both went off. The latter recovered, the former would head for the pits. Local hero Daniel Stell would then splutter to a tragic halt at the same time, and incredibly, former European champion Andrea Dahle was also out after an incident involving Matteo Spiergel and Brandon Nielsen. Then Maxime Orloff would crash out. It was pandemonium, the likes of which were rare even for a KZ2 World Cup final. 8 retirements on the opening 2 laps. Now there were only 28 left of the 36 that started. With 24 laps to go, Robert Kinderwater would also cruise to retirement with damage. The race was finally setting down, and Troger and Power were a long way clear of Vasile Imburg and Jean Nomblot. But looking after tires was just as important as challenging for the lead. Alexander Schmitz, meanwhile, would join the 8 men out of the race as his Tony Kart would go no further. Spurred on by his mechanic, Troger continued to ease his way into each lap, extending enough of a gap to be relatively comfortable. Vasily was safe and sound in third ahead of the 2 Sodis of Imburg and Nomblot. The carnage of the opening 2 laps rather spoiling what could have been a much closer and epic contest. Nakamura Berta made a sensational recovery, catching and passing Alessio Piccini to finish in an astonishing 6th place under the circumstances in his final karting race for now. So after many German racers, including Michael Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel, had tried and failed to win a world karting title, Niels Troger ended the wait and finished the job in style. He may not be a world champion by official name, but winning the World Cup is as good as it gets in KZ2. Alex Powell and Daniel Vasile completed the podium in 2nd and 3rd. There could be 2 German winners in one day, as David Trefilov seeks to replicate in KZ Niels Troger's win from the pole. The drag race to turn 1 was ruthless as Paolo Ippolito and David Trefilov dueled intensely, which allowed Denner to pass them both. A dive up the inside of the Frenchman put Ippolito back in front, but the battle would fizzle out in dramatic fashion in turn 5. Who touched who first was impossible to determine, but it eliminated a whole squadron of potential world champions. Trefilov, Loyer, and Denner were the biggest names to fall. Danilo Albanese was also out with damage, a bitter disappointment for the European champion. The Frenchmen Tom Loyer and Emmeline Denner were enraged and dismayed, and Jeremy Iglesias would join them in retirement. Reigning world champion Victor Gustafsson had not given up on his dream of winning for a 2nd year in a row, and he made his first big move on Matteo Vigano. There was a battle amongst the new boys in KZ as well, with Luigi Coluccio passing Arthur Carbonell. There would be a sad end of the race for former world champion in OK, Pedro Hildebrand, as he crashed with his teammate Giuseppe Palomba. Both men were out instantly. Gustafsson was a man on a mission, storming ahead of Stan Pex, relentlessly trying to catch Ippolito. Did he have enough time? Ippolito was out in front, enjoying his well-built advantage, but he knew that Gustafsson wouldn't let him rest easy. The 2 men who blitzed the OK and KZ world titles in 2019, Lorenzo Traviesanuto and Marine Kramer, were enjoying a battle on circuit. Second time lucky, Traviesanuto made it work, whilst Coluccio had moved ahead of Adrien Renaudin and then passed Kramer's as well. Try as he might, Gustafsson didn't have enough laps to make a bid for the World Championship, and so after all of his hardship, Paolo Ippolito could finally take his place in the FIA Karting Hall of Fame as World Champion. He is now one of the few men to win both the European and World Championships, giving Kart Republic both their first FIA Gearbox crowns on this level, something that team principal Dino Chiesa nor Paolo Ippolito will ever forget. Victor Gustafsson and Stan Pex joined the Italian on the podium. Victor Gustafsson and Stan Pex joined the Italian on the podium.
I'm the world champion of this year. It's amazing. Maybe I didn't realize the great result we did today, but feeling is good. Everyone in the team did a really good job, including me. We didn't make mistake, and after a lot of work, that's the result we need to pay all the effort of all the people inside the team. So I'm really happy.
That's it for today. On our next episode of FIA Pure Motorsport, we'll follow the next step in the development of our FIA Rally Stars. We'll also show you the season finale of the Goodyear European Truck Racing Championship, and we'll experience the decisive phase of the Italian F4 Championship. Till next time, take care, everybody, and ciao.